Today on Adversity, the Strength of Lee Freeman, I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome back someone who left a lasting impact on myself and listeners. This is the incredible Jodi Pavlok. If you caught her first appearance, you'll know Jodi is a fierce advocate for healing, self-empowerment, and helping others reclaim their voice after trauma. She's a writer, speaker, and the heart behind Women Redefined, where she supports women navigating life after divorce, narcissistic relationships, and deep emotional wounds. Jodi's raw honesty, strength, and compassion resonated powerfully with so many of you. Today, she's back to go even deeper. We'll be exploring what's changed since we last spoke, what healing looks like in the long term, some of the traits of narcissists, the effects they can have on people, and how we can continue rising past it. Even though life's most difficult chapters, we can still get through it. Jodi, welcome back. It's an honor to have you back on the podcast again.
Yes, thank you for having me again. I appreciate it.
No problem. So great to see you. How's everything been? What's been going on since we've last spoke? Because it looks like you've been super busy as always.
Yes, everything's great. I've been doing podcasts nonstop. I got my new banner, the Jodi's Triumph, with the Jeffrey Can't Hide in the background. Yes, that's my narcissistic abuse group that I run on Facebook. And then I was asked to make my own podcast channel. So that's kind of in the works, but I'm trying to take a good balance of everything, being guest and just spreading the word about narcissism and, how to get away and break free.
Yeah, it'd be great to talk to you because last time it was great talking to you. I learned so much from yourself and it was brilliant to have you on, but there was just so much that we couldn't get in at that time there as well. So lucky enough, we got a bit of time today. And yes, it'd be great to hear in some of your stories that you've been through, the things that you've learned, and also advice for people to be aware of, especially if they're potentially going into a relationship or they're in a relationship and they're recognizing things are not right. Take us from almost from where we left off there, Jodi.
Yes. Well, I would say with like narcissists, it's very hard to figure them out kind of in the beginning, especially if you've never dealt with one. If you have, then there'll be a little bit of red flags, some bigger than others. Like my ex Frank is a covert narcissist. So I will say there was a little bit of red flags in the beginning, but I made excuses for him. Nah, he's a goofball. He's crazy. He likes the attention. People don't understand him. And he'd always tell me people either love me or hate me. And now I truly understand that statement. They always say half-truths, narcissists, so they tell on themselves. And it is true. And so, when you see somebody who's very grandiose, like, look at me, I make this much money and this person sucks and I'm better than them. And look at me, I'm so great. Those are all narcissistic traits. And again, some of them do it on a smaller version and some do it bigger. But I'll give you one instance. When I lived with my ex and he would get out of the shower and for no reason. And I used to like roll my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, could you talk about fully yourself? He would get out of the shower and he'd take the comb I bought him and look in the mirror, and knowing that I was standing there because I had to be his slave and pick up his clothes off the floor like a toddler, and I would be picking up the clothes and he'd be combing his hair and he goes, I'm one good looking mother effer. How are you so lucky to have somebody like me? I swear to God, he would say that. And I said, Jodi, just shut up. Just don't say anything. And the first couple of times I said it, oh my God, like how much attention does he need? But then he just kept saying it. And it was so off-putting and it was nauseating in a sense too, because, okay, I know this is going to sound mean. If it was true, then okay. But if it's not, it's like, no. Okay. Just like me. I'm not a conceited person. I know I'm a beautiful young woman, but I don't go off saying, I did modeling. I was Little Miss New Jersey, 1987. I look so much better than your wife. Don't you wish you had somebody like me? Oh my God, never. I'm the most unconceited person there is. I can't go around walking like that. And some people are just full of themselves, and that doesn't mean they're narcissists. But I mean, come on. Every time you get out of the shower, you have to talk to yourself saying that, and then you're telling me you're so lucky that you're with me. How did you land such a great guy? How did you do this? How did you do that? And it's like, how about you say, hey, honey, what's for dinner? How was your day? Instead of these stupidity talk. I don't know. But these are just like little things that I didn't talk about that in the book. But I mean, these are things that they do. And they really think that about themselves, but then deep down in the inside, they truly hate themselves. So it's such a paradox what's going on with them. Yeah. And again, I always stress the point that it is a personality disorder. It is a so-called mental disorder. But again, whereas there are other conditions that people are unaware and they can't help it, This kind of disorder, they know fully what they're doing. And that's so deceptive about them and actually discerning and disgusting, because they're calculating, they're manipulative, and they know how truly deeply they're hurting you. And it's sickening to a point. And I was even speaking in my other podcast. There was one instance, I think, like I said the last time about the book, when I left my ex for the first time, that I thought it was a quote unquote emotional affair. He reached out to my best friend. I went back a second time. Right away, he talked to my stepfather and he talked to my mother on the phone, not in person, not like a real man, but on the phone. And he said, I apologize, Dave. My stepfather, I apologize, Patty, to my mother, and saying, I love your daughter. I'm going to make things right. It was wrong what I did, confiding in another woman. We're going to move forward with the wedding. I'm going to make things right. Bop, 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 bop. But yet he never apologized to me. And as he was saying these things, he was still continuing the affair with the 70-year-old married woman. And it's like, dude, like, you're really sick in the head. And then once in a while, I think to myself, like, why did he even bother doing that? But you know what it was? It's because he was portrayed to be the bad guy when I left him, which he was. And now he had to be put back on a pedestal. Like, no, no, no. Jodi got it wrong. We had a falling out. I know we never broke up before. This was a little too intense. She shouldn't have left the house. I'm making it right. So he wanted to be, look in it, shined in a good light again. But then meanwhile, it's like, dude, if you really thought it was going to work out, if he had any kind of brains to him, he would have cut the affair out and prayed to God that I would have forgave him and gotten past it, which now that I think about it, I don't think I could have. But at that point, I just was taking it day by day. But it's like crazy because they'll set other people up to say, oh, no, this is not what happened, the gaslighting at its finest. But then they're still sneaking around behind your back. And then he really thought I wasn't going to find out about it again. And now, from what I've heard from other people, he blames, of course, everybody but himself. It's my fault. It's my parents' fault. It's my best friend's fault. All these people keep me away from him. In a sense, yes. But honey, I chose to leave you, not once but twice. I know that's a big narcissistic ego blow. Deal with it. Go drink your sorrows away like you always do. And deal with it. These are the consequences when you do somebody dirty. And that's, like I said, I'm the nicest, sweetest person ever. But, that's the Gemini in me. You flip that other side to me, you're not going to know who I am. And it's not in a mean-spirited way. It's just a protection mode. It's like, dude, you have mentally bombarded me and browbeated me for years. And then the gaslighting and the cheating. You think I'm going to stick around for that? I don't need validation from a man. I need somebody who understands me, who appreciates me, who is interested in who I am instead of what I could provide you, and just an all-around normal person. And he was not any of it, And that's the thing with narcissists too. A lot of people say, well, why do you say you're grieving? I said, well, not anymore. I said, but in the beginning, you have to grieve not only the person you're with because you are in love with a fictitious person. You're in love with a fiction of imagination, like what Johnny Depp said with his wife. You are somebody who I made up in my head that did not exist. And now I truly understand that when you go back and listen to it. And then on the other end, it's you're grieving a relationship that truly shouldn't have started from the beginning, and then it blossomed and it was almost to its peak and almost made it, and then it collapsed. So there's grief on many different levels, but you deal with it as much as your mind can mentally handle it, and you try not to, like, especially with me, I can't get overwhelmed because then it sets panic and anxiety in me. So I just take it as it comes, and if I have a bad day, I distract myself. I mean, those are very far and few now because it's 14 months out that I left him. But, it's just otherworldly when you go with these things. And a couple of friends asked me, well, as I always had anxiety issues a little bit, just I guess my personality, which is weird because me with the big personality talking and getting to know people, it's different kinds of anxieties. It's really from abuse from men, honestly, where it stemmed from. And, a lot of people are like, well, don't you think it gives you anxiety talking about the book and it hinders you moving on? I said, no. I said, if anything, it empowers me. I said, because I was very uncomfortable in doing the book. Like I had to make myself comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. I wanted to do the book. Nobody forced me to do it. And I said, no, it's going to be therapeutic to write. I'm going to help people, which is most important. And I think continuously talking about it, especially with somebody like me who is completely no contact, let go of the relationship for what it was. It's dead as a doornail. It just gives me more confirmation every time I talk about it that I made the right choice.
Yeah.
Because like I have not talked about that in some time, about him in the mirror, like saying how great he is, and all these other crazy cuckoo things he did. And it's like, listen, you can be confident in yourself and be like, oh, look, I look good today. But the way they go about things and say things about themselves, they'll give themselves the utmost like criticism, positive ones. But then it's like, oh, I think you gained a couple of pounds. You don't look good in that shirt. Why aren't your breasts bigger? You should do your hair this way. Your face looks too round with your hair like that. You need to make more money. Nothing is ever good enough for them. So then in the first place, it's like, then why were you with me in the first place? But again, a narcissist and an empath are drawn to each other like a moth to a flame. And it's like their darkness gets attracted to the light and vice versa. Theirs is for insidious reasons. Our reasons are we want to fix people. And we want to see the goodness in others. And I'll be honest, like I said in the first podcast with you, I knew of kind of, I don't know what the word is to say, rumors of him when he was younger. He was a womanizer, he used to drink, a partier. And I said, again, I don't care what he did 30 years ago. I wasn't raised to judge people. But then you would think 30 years later, one would grow up. No, they actually get worse with age, as I found out. Yes, they truly do. I mean, listen, they could put that facade on, which they do very well, but on deep down in the inside, they're just miserable people. And once I learned about the word narcissism, and again, I knew about it a little bit because my ex-husband was one. When I saw those narcissistic qualities and when the little red flags would go off, like little commentary before the big blowouts, I would think to myself, you know what? He's never had a good, strong woman in his life. And listen, like I said, I'm not conceited, but I am very secure in the person who I am. Yeah. Whoever is in my life, especially a partner, a boyfriend, whatever, they're very lucky to have me because I do not cheat. I do not lie. I do not steal. I value, I appreciate, and I will bend over backwards to make you happy. And especially with him, he didn't have to lift a finger in the house. What did I ask for? Loyalty. Don't cheat. Treat me with respect. Fail, fail, fail. And I kept giving him chance after chance after chance. And I kept telling myself, he's not used to a good, strong woman. Maybe he thinks because the 18-year age difference that I'm naive. And that wasn't the case because I'm an old soul. I really am. And I have manners and respect for myself. And I thought he just needs to be with somebody who gets him. And for a while it worked. And then when he would, I'll say, misbehave, and I hate to say it like that because it sounds like a toddler, but that is their mentality. I would just say he needs to learn to conform a little bit to normalcy, like, living with somebody and being engaged. And again, I never forced any of this on him. He asked me to move into his house. He told me he swore off marriage and then he proposed to me. And it was weird because for like a year and a half, I stopped talking about marriage because I was so gung-ho. No, we're going to get married. It's going to be better the second time around, because it would have been his second time also. And he's like, no, I never want to get married. I said, you know what? I'm not going to talk about it anymore. I said, if he does not see my value, then it's his loss. And I'll be honest, I still would have stayed with him if he didn't marry me and he didn't have the affair. I still would have stayed in that abusive environment because unfortunately, that's all I knew. Between my ex-husband and him, you are drawn to what's familiar, unfortunately. Yeah. And it's not that I thought that was love. It's just what I was conformed and shaped into, if that makes sense. So I just kept thinking, no, it's going to get better. We came too far. And I always put the work in. And like I said before, I am not a quitter, but I had to quit him because there was no accountability on his side. There was no change. Didn't want to go to therapy. He was still continuing the affair with the woman, which I'm sure he still is, whatever. And, they just don't want to take any accountability and just be happy with what they have. I mean, listen, I could have, had the perfect shape and made, $2 million a year and did even more for him, which is nearly impossible, but it's still
no difference.
And no difference.
Going to make any difference.
There's still going to be another woman or another hooker or whatever it was. And it's just the stories that came out after I wrote the book. And I'm like, whoa, I'm like, okay, well, the charm certainly works on a lot of women. And then, some people would be like, well, And it's not that I judge the other women, well, especially hookers. They're there for a service, okay? So that's the charm doesn't work there. But somebody he had a one night stand with, or an ex from 30 years ago, or, Granny Panties who he's with, whatever. They're like, well, why are you like, they would say, upset about how he duped them, but now not how he duped you? I said, well, it's a little different. I said, because I said, I'm not upset with these people. I don't care. I said, I released him. He still would have been with me if I accepted him back into life. I mean, I could have just turned a blind eye to everything and just lived a miserable life and walked on eggshells, but I wanted better. And I said, it's not that I'm upset with them. I said, I just can't believe his same protocol of picking up women works. But they're all from different walks of life and come from different situations. And I said, you got to understand, I said, with me, I knew of him from years ago. There was a level of comfortableness. And I said, he didn't love bomb me the usual way, like flowers and gifts. No, the 9 years I was with him, and again, it's not about materialistic things. I'm just making the point. He never bought me one flower. He never went in the yard and even picked a flower and said, here, Jody, here's a beautiful flower for you because I think you're beautiful. Never made me feel pretty, never made me feel beautiful. Once in a while, he would say, oh, you look beautiful in that dress. I mean, like maybe 3 times in 9 years. Again, I don't need constant validation, but when you're with somebody who is so egotistical and into themselves, it would be nice when you basically break their back for them and you get dressed up for them all the time. Be like, wow, you look really beautiful in that today, hon. It doesn't cost anything to be nice. But to them, they rather die before they give you a compliment. And that's the truth of it. And he just would do these undermined things. And like I said, with these other women, again, there's a difference when you, let's just say, pay for a service. Or if you're with somebody for the night, only know them for a couple of hours. And, there's really no attraction, I don't think, with him and, the old lady. I think it's just more money driven, but hey, to each their own, whatever. You want to live a facade life? Well, that's what you've been doing your whole life. So why should it change now, right? Exactly. And then it just blows my mind. But again, these people, I'd say 9 out of 10, maybe with the exception of maybe one ex, they have not lived with him. You come to me when you live with him for a good 5 years, then you let me know how things turn out. My stepfather always taught me that. He said, any relationship, he goes, it's always good in the beginning. He said, but come to me in 5 years and let me know how it is. And he's right. And I'm not one of these people who say, oh, I never listen to my parents, they're wrong, or they think they know everything. No, everything my parents taught me is completely correct. And I always took their advice and tried to listen. But, I always tried to make any kind of bad situation I was in, especially the narcissistic one, I tried to make it good or turn it around or fix it because I'm a fixer. That's what empaths do. And you have to accept there's just some things you can't fix. And one of them is a narcissist. Big thing. And a lot of people like, well, there's some self-aware narcissists that do seek therapy. Very true. There's 1 or 2 I actually follow on TikTok, just for some input once in a while when I want to think what Frank was thinking in their mind. But then it's very conceited and selfish what they say. And then I say to myself, you know what? What does it matter what went through his mind? He knew he was hurting me. He knew he was destroying the relationship and he wanted to have his cake and eat it too. I said, it was nothing against these self-aware narcissists, but for my situation, I was like, it's not going to change anything. How I felt about him, what I think about him now, and just as a whole. But these self-aware narcissists, excuse me, some of them can conform to society, have wives and children, but at the end of the day, they're still a narcissist. So their partner has to kind of accept, well, there's a lot of crap I got to deal with. And that's just one way of living. But again, 9 out of 10, they're never going to accept they're a narcissist. They're like, I don't even know what that word is. They play dumb and they just think everybody is below them, beneath them. They can continue to get away with these double lives and they like the thrill of it. And most of them, like my ex, they're just going to die playing these same games day in, day out. And at the end, they're miserable people who are empty inside. And like my ex, he can't ever be alone. He can't live alone. So one of his family members was staying with us temporarily when I was with him when this all went down. And I believe he's still there because he needs somebody to pay rent. He needs somebody to leech off of. He needs somebody to come home to, even if it's not a woman. It's just they don't know how to be alone. They don't know how to just take care of themselves. So besides the narcissism, they truly don't know how to be an adult in a whole.
Yeah, yeah, no, I totally get that. Do you think there are people out there that genuinely that they're a narcissist? They got the traits, they act in a certain way, but they're genuinely unaware that they are actually a narcissist. What do you think?
I don't know. I'm kind of half and half on that because, see, I never
I'd say I am. I'd say I am.
Yeah, because I mean, I think there's plenty out there that know they are, and they
Yeah,
just like, I don't give a crap. It's like, you want to be with me? You live the life of Riley, like my ex. You take as it comes and don't ask questions. I didn't know
yeah,
that in the beginning, but that was his mind, his persona. He never said it out loud. But I mean, there's a lot of them that do know they're narcissists, and they're like, yep, I don't care. Take it or leave it. So I think it's like kind of half and half. And a lot just don't either know enough about the word, or they think like, oh, I don't have enough traits to be like that, or they just think they're above the law, above people, above everything and everyone, and they just think, no, I'm special. Everybody needs to fall to their knees for me. It's this self-entitlement bullshit, and I just don't know where it stems from. Like I said on the last podcast, I know a lot of it is childhood trauma.
yeah,
And I get it. And, we've all maybe had a sense of a bad event if it wasn't, something traumatic. With him, I think it was more learned bad behaviors from his father. I always make this commentary. There was a father who was an alcoholic, and he had two sons. And one son was an alcoholic. One was like a CEO of a Fortune 500
yeah,
company. And somebody asked the guy, the first brother who was well-to-do, how did you become a CEO? Like, what was your drive? He goes, my father was an alcoholic, and I wanted to be the complete opposite of him.
yeah,
I wanted to make a life for myself and be proud of the person I am, not where I came from. And the other brother, why are you an alcoholic? My dad's an alcoholic. What do you expect? So it's a different mindset. It's a different
yeah,
mentality. And again, sometimes you have to learn to be strong. Some people just aren't born with it, because I've certainly had my moments. Like, I know I stayed too long with my ex, but I was too weak mindset to leave. Between me being so deeply in love, between me not believing this is the real him, and then on top of it, it was the trauma bond. So you got like a triple threat going on, and then with all his gaslighting and bullshit on top of it. So not that I was always weak-minded, it's just that I always believed in working things out and in it for the long haul. And with him, obviously it wasn't going to end well because of his choices. So you gain a stronger mindset. Some people are just born with it. I guess it all depends, like we were talking about childhood trauma. But with him, his dad was married, and he had 4 kids at home, and he was always away on work, on business. And he was known to be an alcoholic and a womanizer. And that's what he learned. But again, not trying to be mean, I don't feel sorry for my ex, because he could have lived a righteous life. He chose to do in between, because
yeah.
he
He chose.
works, but he has, how do I say, selective addiction problems. He doesn't drink every day, but he will get blasted in AC every weekend, or on
Yeah,
vacation, all inclusive. Let me tell you, you're going to lose money on him between the buffet and the alcohol. Forget it, the alcohol. But, and then, you know, other times, he'd work like a dog. But again, not that it was about me. I'm just making the point. When you're together with somebody, especially when you're living with them, you're supposed to be a unit. It's supposed to be we, not me. And when he would work a lot of hours, he would always say, well, it keeps me out of trouble. No, it doesn't, because you were texting granny panties when you were at work and calling her, so don't give me that crap. And if you have to work so much at your age to stay out of trouble, you have
yeah.
issues that you need
There
to
is
work
trouble.
on. Yeah. And he knew, which was the craziest thing, because even with all the bombarding he did with me, and the put downs and the yelling and screaming, once or twice I got maybe a little snippy with him, because, everybody has their breaking point. But I never made fun of him. I never put him down. I never made him feel less of a man, let's say in certain areas, whereas other women would. And I never did that. Even when, I don't want to say he deserved it, but when he was abusing me and I really could have went in for it, I never did that, because I always want to be the better person. I always will be the better person. I was raised better than that. And he just would always find fault with everything with me, put me down constantly. So that's why I didn't understand, like when he said stupid things like that, why didn't he say, you know, Jodi, let's go to therapy together. There's something going on. Why? I don't know why I'm talking to you this way and why I can't just accept your love and trust you, which is weird because it was a paradox with him. I knew deep down he could trust me with his life, with everything. I ran everything. I had full access to his bank account, social security numbers burned in my brain, everything. He knows I never screw him. And he still did what he did. And it's true what happened in the book. I was holding $57,000 of his money cash in an old pocketbook in my aunt's condo. And for him to have an affair, and I found out most of the women, and I'm not saying that they're bad, but most of the women would be scorned and they would have took that money and said, F you, I'm buying a new car, I'm paying off my debt, I'm going on vacation with my friends, I'm going to leave the country for a few months. What did I do? I left him on a Friday, got the money on a Sunday. I gave it to my stepfather. He went to the house and gave it to his family member staying at the house because he ran away like the little bitch he is. He didn't want to talk to my stepfather. The whole $57,000 was given back. And you know what he did right after the money was given back? He started the smear campaign, how I'm a gold digger. Well, once one must have gold to dig first to be a gold digger, okay? I mean, he certainly did okay for himself, but he would go around telling people he's a millionaire, but he was a fake millionaire. And I used to be like, why do you have to say that? People do not care how much money you make an hour, okay? And like, I'm sorry, and it's not like a conceited thing. Again, I don't care how much money you make. You can make $10 an hour. You can make 1,000 an hour. I'm still going to think of you based off of how you treat me. I'm not going to be with you only because, you know, you make a lot of money. And that's why I didn't understand his mentality with that. I think he thought people would like him more if he gave off this facade of, oh, I'm a millionaire.
But that's your insecurities. That's your lack of, you're looking for external validation. That just sums it up in that.
Yes, all the time. And everything was with money with him. And it was so annoying because the whole relationship, and this has happened to a lot of women too, they financially abuse. Now, again, I believe in every relationship is different. You know, when you're married, obviously you put money together. When you're living together, everybody's different. When I was with him, we kept the money separate, but he charged me rent, groceries, cable, like everything. I mean, like, and he knew I didn't make a lot of money back then driving the school bus. Again, that's not his problem. But if you're making at least $100,000 more a year than I am, and you have no mortgage, why are you charging me rent? Okay, I didn't realize it back then. I don't mind kicking in for groceries, some other bills, but I got to leave money for myself at the end of the month, pay my car payment, money for my nails, little girl things, whatever, because he never did any of that. You know, I'm never with a guy for them to pay my way in life. But, you know, when I do absolutely everything, it would have been nice if he said, oh, you know what? I'm going to order in Friday. Don't cook. You know, you slave over the stove enough. Never did that. Once in a while, if he wanted to bring home a pizza pie, when it was good for him, even if I had a gourmet dinner made, I'm like, don't bring pizza home tonight. Because I always communicated with him. I'm going to make short ribs tomorrow. I'm going to make filet mignon. Good, expensive food. And he would bring home a pizza. I'm like, why didn't you wait till the weekend? Then I wouldn't have taken that out and made it. Like, you know, I appreciated the maybe 3 times he did it out of 9 years. But it's like communication. But they do what they want when they want, and they don't care. So again, with the financial abuse, then we were constantly going away on vacations, which I appreciated. He wanted to go away with me. But really, it was more for validation on Facebook. Look at me, I'm here, I'm there, whatever. But again, I had to pay for myself 9 times out of 10. Another reason, I'm not saying a man should have to pay for everything, but he knew how much money I made. And there was at a point I said, Frank, I cannot afford to do this lifestyle anymore. I can't afford to pay you rent and everything in the house and groceries and my bills and then vacation. I mean, I couldn't do it. And he's like, oh, well, I'll pay for your flight like 1 every 5 times. And I'm like, oh, that's not helping. And I tried to tell him, I said, and I was always nice. I'm like, I appreciate you want to pay for my flight. I said, but then you expect me to pay for breakfast, lunch, dinner for 5 days. Then I have like the casino I love. If I'm paying for all that, then I have no money to gamble. And I'm sorry, that's not fun for me watching somebody play. That's like me inviting you out to go to dinner and you're starving. And I say, I have no money to pay for you and you have no money for yourself, but you're going to sit and watch me eat. It's like the same mentality. Why would you do that to somebody? And yes, I have, control where there was plenty of trips where I couldn't afford to gamble and I had to watch him, but it was more like babysitting duties. He would be pounding away with the drinking and I didn't know when he was going to be verbally abusive again. And then if I walked off and wanted to get a slice of pizza, that means I was going to go off and, blow a guy on the way there. All the craziness he would say to me. And I'm like, he wouldn't let me out of his sight. And I'm like, dude, you're here. I'm walking over here to get pizza. Like, I'm not going to starve myself because you want to get blasted all day drinking. Like, grow up. It's like stuff like that. So, when I left, that's why I wanted to get myself back financially on track, because I was always good with money. I was always very good with having a good balance of spending and saving and everything. But with him, I was drowning because.
But do you think that it was deliberate ploy to make sure that you'd never had enough money? You couldn't do anything.
Yes, I do. Because he would say to my best friends sometimes in the beginning, and we didn't understand it back then, he'd say, Jodie's a good kid, which that nauseated me. I'm not a kid. I'm a 41-year-old woman. Now, yes, I know I look young. Okay. Good skincare routine and good genes. But I get there was an 18-year age difference, but I'm not a kid. That's kind of gross that you're referring to your girlfriend / fiance as a kid. I'm a woman. Okay. That's number one. And then number two, he would be like, well, where is she going to go, pig? She's got nowhere to go. Of course she's got to be with me. And this is before he was getting abusive with the words and stuff. And my best friend was like, Frank, what do you mean she's got nowhere to go? You just asked her to move in with you. She's been living with you, say, at that point, over a year. And she's like, Frank, she's got her parents, her aunt. She goes, she has me and Vic. She has her other friends. She's always got plenty of places to go. And she said, why would you even say that? Like, you guys are together. I don't understand what you're getting at. And I guess he didn't expect her to react that way, so he kind of shut up, which nothing can make him shut up. And these would be the things he would say. So I really think he wanted to get me down to a financial point where I would have to be dependent on him and I would never leave him, and I would take all the abuse so I could continue being his slave.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you know yourself, if you don't have money, it's like a heart attack. You're screwed. Yeah.
Yes.
And without money, almost, unless you've got some really good close friends or family, you're on your own.
Yes. And it's hard because I feel so bad because there's so many women that write to me, on Facebook or TikTok, Instagram, and they'd say, I really want to leave my husband. You made me realize he's narcissistic, this abuse, it's not normal. I want to leave, but I have kids and I don't have the money. And I feel, my heart aches for them. And my best advice I give them is, listen, you're recognizing you're in a narcissistic relationship. That's good. You recognize the patterns. Number two, you're recognizing you have to get out. Bravo. That's a very big step. I said, number three, see if you could borrow money from family. See if you can go stay with a friend. If you have to stay for a little bit of time, just play nice, pretend, don't let them know anything, and squirrel money away and get the hell out of there as fast as you can. Even if it's on credit cards, who cares? Get out. Because and again, a lot of people would say, oh, that's deceptive. You're going to stay in a relationship and lead them on and then leave. No, it's called survival. Yes. And that's not every relationship. This is a narcissistic relationship. This is different. So this is why I stress to every woman who's in these kind of relationships, whether it's the beginning stages or the end of them wanting to leave. Yes, I believe in union. I believe in, hey, you put money together when you live together, you're married and everything. But when you're in that kind of situation where the money's kind of commingled and you don't have access, put a little bit to the side. They don't have to know about. Always have a little money squirreled away because you never, ever know. And that's how my mother taught me. It's just life lessons. Like when I was with my ex-husband, I saw the writing on the wall probably about 4.5 years before. Now, see, he never cheated on me. They're very different narcissists. Not that I know of. I don't think he did. Very verbally abusive. I just couldn't take it anymore. The explosive anger. No drugs, a little bit with drinking, but he wasn't nasty with the drinking. He was just always arguing and verbally abusive. I couldn't take it anymore. So when things are starting to go downhill, my mom said, Jodi, I don't know if this is going to work out with him. you need to start putting money away for yourself, because he was kind of like in control of the money. So he knew what I made. So when I would get a raise at work, or I would work extra hours when I knew he would work, I put the money away. My mom would hold it for me. Now, again, I'm not saying I condone be sneaky when you're with a person. I don't believe in that. I believe in full transparency. But when you're in a relationship like this, specialized,
when you're in
abusive, yeah.
abusive, physically, mentally,
Yeah.
financially abusive relationship.
Financially, yes. You have to.
Yeah, I've had it where clients have literally, they've got no money at all.
And it's a shame. And like with my ex-husband, we were putting a good amount of money away. Well, that was when he was allowing me to run the money, And at a certain point, I put maybe like $5,000 away to the side. And when I left him, that $5,000 paid for the divorce. I mean, it was something that's better than nothing, but it gave me enough money that I could do it on my own without asking my parents for anything. Yeah, I moved in with them. They helped me, and that was enough money for them. But then when I left him, I was expecting, I think at one point we had like 120,000 saved, which was pretty good back then. You talk about almost 20 years ago. I was just a school bus driver. He was, just doing air conditioning and heating. When I went to go look at the account to tell the, not the mediator, the attorney, I said, okay, we could just split the assets. 0. He wiped it out. He wiped it out in a year. I didn't even know, because he would allow me access to the account, but he would never allow me to take out of the account. So let's just say I wanted to go get my nails done with my mother, because I was only allowed to have $20 in my wallet a week. That was my allowance. Okay, so talk about crazy. But again, I was in my 20s. I didn't know any better. Yes, he paid for everything. Like even when we were dating. So then when we got married, we put the money together. He paid for everything. So it really was my money too. See what I mean? No big deal. And that's where you really get brainwashed, because you're with one guy that paid for everything. And then when I went to Frank, he was so cheap, he paid for nothing. So like the mentality with how I got entangled with another narcissist was, okay, financially he was okay, even though it was my money too. He provided on bare minimum, but he wasn't cheap. I was like, all right, we always argued about money. The next relationship I get in, I'm not going to argue about money. I'm not going to let money get in the way. And see, that was my mistake, because I didn't realize Frank was such a covert narcissist. It's so cheap that his ass squeaks. It's ridiculous. So I gotta make it a little funny. And like I said, if I had to take Excedrin for my migraine headaches, he wouldn't even stop for a slice of pizza with me if we were in the car. Like, dude, I'm going to pay for it. Like, don't worry. Your $1.99 will stay in your wallet. I'll buy you something too. I just need to take my medication. But he wouldn't stop, because he wanted me to suffer in pain. And he knew how bad my migraine headaches were. I still get them every day, whether it's a chronic daily headache or a migraine. But he did not care. He wanted me in pain. He wanted to control. It was only going to be what he said when he said it. And that's what we were arguing about when I went back a second time. When I went to Aruba, I was trying to explain to him how the emotional affair, that's what I thought it was at the time, how it hurt me. How can you confide in another woman and not be emotionally connected to me and talk about things? And he flipped it around and said, when you move back home, we got to put the money together. And I said, I'm not worried about money now. I said, I will not put money together with somebody I am not married to. I said, and right now, I do not see marriage happening for us, because you can't even admit to me that you were having an affair, whether it was an emotional or physical or both. I said, so that's number one. And then he just kept going around about the conversation, how, oh, if we can't live off of $9,000 a month, we're doing something wrong. I said, that would be you, because you blow $10,000 every weekend in Atlantic City. You can't afford to gamble that much. You have to live within your means, okay? And he did not want to accept that. That was number one. And number two, he's trying to circle around the conversation to draw me back in. Like, when you move back in, we're going to put the money together. So that means you don't have to worry. We're going to stick together. No, that did not give me any confidence towards the relationship, because I could see the writing on the wall. I said, I will not put money together unless we're married. And I don't see that happening right now, because you are not doing anything to fix the problems like you promised you said you were. So that was a big argument. But that's what they like to do. They like to control with money, with words, with rules. I mean, oh my God, like I said, even going out with my friends, he would always accuse me of cheating. Going out with my mother and my aunt to go to a doctor's appointment. I was cheating. I was out, his famous line, I was always out gallivanting. It's not gallivanting when I'm running a house going grocery shopping. Meanwhile, I think like once in a grand while, I wish I still had the pictures. Maybe it'll come up on Instagram because I deleted everything with him mostly. Once in a grand while, like I get my hair done in Atlantic City, even though it's a 2.5 hour ride. We'd usually go down for the day, me, my mother, my aunt, come back. Once in a grand while, we'd stay overnight. And without him, because I go during the week, when he's working. Do you know before I went, the night before, the refrigerator was full like this. He had his breakfast, lunch, dinner for the next 2 days. He didn't have to do anything but press 3 minutes on the microwave, take his little sandwich out and eat it like a little boy. I had everything planned. His laundry, he did not have to lift a finger. So, because I was such on eggshells. Again, at that time, I didn't mind taking care of him. But I knew, my God, if I don't have his egg sandwich with his turkey and provolone and his meatball and mashed potatoes and dessert, he's going to flip out and call me a bad fiance, and he's going to do... Nope. Everything was set perfectly for him. But no, he would badmouth me to his coworkers. I'm out here working like a dog, and she's gallivanting, gambling with her mother. I'm with my mother and my aunt. I'm on a slot machine. Who cares? Drinking a Coca-Cola. If that bothers you, I don't know what else to tell you. Just ludicrous.
It's such insecurities and a distorted view of the world. It's just,
yes.
It's just such projection there as well. How did you feel when you finally got out of it? I mean, like the first sort of few days, weeks when you knew that you were out of it, never to return.
Yeah. For me, it's a little different. Like with everything in life, whenever I get some kind of like shocking news, it takes a little while to hit me, whether it's a few hours or the next day. That's what I realized when shit really hits me. So I remember when I was sent the photo of him being with granny panties, I broke down hysterically and I called my best friend Peggy because she lives in Florida. And I said, I can't do this anymore, Peg. And I sent her the photo. She's like, oh my God, Joe, you got to be fucking kidding me. I said, no. I said, I was just sent it right now. It's in real time. And I talked to her for 2 hours and just hysterical. So first there's the initial shock, but then in the back of your mind, you're like, we knew this was coming. Hysterical crying for a couple of days. That was set in. And then on top of it with my situation, not to give away too much of the plot of the story, I did not know that I was actively having a miscarriage also. So between that and his deception and the shock, it was not fun. It was the deepest, darkest time in my life, I would say. Not fun at all. And I went completely no contact. But at that point, this was the second time I was holding money for him because I always held money. He gave me like $2,900 to pay for the quarterly taxes of his house. So once I found out about the miscarriage, it was like maybe 3 or 4 days, not even after I found out about the affair, and I blocked him completely. I went to the town hall. I paid his taxes like I did because I'm a person of my word. And I lost $500 to the deposit for the wedding. So I told myself, I said, you know what? I'm going to keep the 500 out of this because that's what I lost and that's only right. I got the receipt for the 2,400 that was paid for the taxes and I gave it to him. Not him, I'm sorry. I wrote it on a letter. I said, I paid your taxes. I kept $500 because that's the deposit I lost for the wedding. By the way, I had a miscarriage. Thanks for knocking me up. Go fuck yourself. Excuse the language. That's the letter I wrote. And it was very weird because I had polycystic ovarian syndrome and I have a lot of cysts in my ovaries. And I was always told that I could never have children or it'd be very difficult. And I've been on the pill since 17. I mean, the last time I was with them, which was very quick, if God couldn't give me another sign, I don't know what would be. It just like everything came at once. And I'm like, I literally can't take anymore. I can't do it. So I left him that note and I left it hanging outside of our mailbox, the old house I used to live with him. I know he got the note. And the mere fact that he didn't reach out to any of my friends. Now, he certainly reached out to Peggy, my best friend, when he wanted to get back with me. But then now that he was caught again and I blocked him again, I don't know what he thought in his mind, if I was going to come back again, if I was punishing him. I don't know, but I was obviously done. I left him the note. He did not, and I think that was my driving force, part of it with the book and part of it with getting over him, because he did not reach out to my best friend's husband, which he was kind of friends with, my friend Sean, Peggy, nobody. All he had to say is Jodi okay? Did not even ask to see if I was okay after the miscarriage, knowing of my anxiety issues. So I was like, wow, that's how little you think of me after 9 years. I mean, if that's not a big F you, I don't know what is. So I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to write this book because this is just deception after deception after deception. And then just I don't even want to say you want a fake apology or you want fake empathy, but my God, just reaching out to a mutual friend to see if I'm okay. Not even that. Shows how little I meant to him. No problem, buddy.
Yeah, you did the right thing.
Absolutely.
What advice? Because there's going to be people. I mean, having people on an expert in narcissistic relationships for me is so important.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people out there. Some know, some don't know. What advice would you give to somebody if they're not sure they're in a narcissistic relationship?
I mean, the first thing I would say is obviously not in front of them. When you have some time to yourself, you have to like educate yourself on the word narcissism. What does it mean? What are the traits? What does trauma bonding mean? What is gaslighting? You know, what are all these terms, cognitive dissonance, all these things that they do, undermined, underhanded. Then once you see it, you could kind of put together some instances that happened. Then you could say, you know, I think he is a narcissist. Or maybe it's like, oh, he only did that one time. Maybe he isn't a narcissist. It all depends on the situation. But most of the time when people have, you know, an ickling about it, they're pretty much right that they are with the narcissistic partner. So educating yourself on the subject and the terminology, and then try to go back and recognize the patterns when this happened and how often and when it started and how long you've been in it. That's a big thing. Really analyze it. And then the most important thing, like I had to, is what are you going to do about it? Are you going to stay or are you going to leave? And it's either stay and suffer or leave and thrive. And either road is not going to be easy. But I could promise you, if you leave, it's going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your life, but you will get through it. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but one must go through the darkness to get to the light. You know, it's not an easy road. And I know a lot of people want to hear like, oh, you left and hey, I met a boyfriend a week later. And, you know, I got that apartment I wanted and that big $100,000 raise that you know, that's in a perfect life. This is real life. It's not easy. Life is never easy. I don't care. Even for the millionaires and the celebrities, everybody goes through their shit, you know? So it's just, what do you want for your life? You got to have that mentality, that strong mentality to leave. And like I said with my ex, even though I knew he was doing me dirty and he was treating me like shit, I knew that. I thought maybe somewhere deep down he loved me and it was just his issues. Well, I know it was his issues, but even at that point, I didn't want to leave. I wanted it to work so bad, but I had to leave. I had to finally choose me and say, Jodi, if you don't leave, it's going to wind up really bad. Like something really bad is going to happen. I don't know to what degree, but I said, let's not find out. Let's just leave. Let's go no contact. And I feel bad for the women who do leave and they, you know, share custody with kids and that, because, you know, the ultimate consequence for a narcissist is going no contact and just acting as if they never existed, you know, and that's what I'm doing. My ex, thankfully, I never see him. I do not go to places I know he goes to because I don't want to run into him. That's his consequence the rest of his life. He may see me, watch me on these podcasts. I know, you know, him and his stalker crew. Go ahead, keep watching. This is the only way you'll ever see me again. But I will never speak to him face to face. There's nothing to say. The disrespect was so loud, words did not have to be said when I left.
I think there's so much that you said there that so many people will take a lot from, be able to relate to. It might even make people realize some of the relationships that they're actually in. Jodi, thank you so much for coming on for your part two. Absolutely brilliant. Can't wait to get it out there as well. And again, all of Jodi's information will be in the description there, along with her links there as well. Thanks ever so much for coming on, Jodi.
Yes, thanks for having me again. I appreciate it.
Thank you.